Portuguese wines are the most undiscovered wines of the European continent in the United States of America. Here's a few interesting things that I have discovered about Portugal. One, it's easier to get to Lisbon than it is to San Francisco. And let me put that into perspective, and it's very simple. If you leave Kennedy and you arrive in Lisbon, you only have to literally leave the city limits and you're in your first vineyards. And there you have Portugal. Portugal is so undiscovered. The food, the wine. If you travel to San Francisco, which we all love San Francisco, you still have another hour, 45 minutes an hour before you're in Sonoma, before you're in Napa Valley. That doesn't happen once you arrive in Portugal, in the airport. It's happening. And here I understand very quickly about Lisbon, that they figured out in San Francisco they had the same hills but in different dynamics. As opposed to the 7 hills, they have hills that are incongruent, which makes San Francisco so charming and so beautiful. Go to Lisbon and you will have the original San Francisco. Whether you go north, south, east, you're immediately in great vineyard areas. I know Portugal is, in the American psyche, all about sweet wine and their port wines from the Douro. However, I think the Americans need to wake up to the fact that several things have happened in Portugal. There's been a wine revolution. There's been a wine revolution not only in white wines, which, by the way, the Vinho Verde, which you can call comparative to the Albarino grape. It is the Albarino grape, among others, and the Rías Baixas in Spain seem to have captured the imagination. I think the America needs to wake up and venture across the river and go back into northern Portugal and discover what Albarino is doing, because these wines are low in alcohol, they are so refreshing, so drinkable. And moving all the way down south to Alentejo is certainly some of the most exciting red wines in the world. What the Americans have to get over is we are no longer talking about Cabernet Sauvignon, we're not talking Merlot, we're not talking Pinot Noir. We are talking about these 1,000-year-old indigenous varietals that are delivering pleasure after pleasure after pleasure. These are real food wines. They are amazingly graceful. They've got buoyancy, they've got flavor, they've got body. And I think what the Portuguese have done so well is that here is this land that hugs the sea, hugs the Atlantic Ocean, hugs the Mediterranean. It's a country that so is much about the sea and the seafood and the fish and this what they can do with the seafood and the fish. But at the same time, the interior is all about meat. So you have great lamb, you have great beef. And so to marry these two together, the Portuguese have figured out how can I produce a red wine that will go with both. And it's one of the few countries, in my humble opinion, that have figured out how a red wine goes with seafood, goes with meat. So, one other important thing, the Portuguese most undiscovered aspect, two undiscovered aspects. One is their olive oil, amazing olive oils, but two is probably the most exciting cheeses in the world that have not been discovered yet. And this is where anybody who's into wine and food would say, wait a second, of course we're going to go to San Francisco. Of course we're going to go the same amount of time to San Francisco. go to Portugal.